Welcome to this insightful session on Incoterms 2020. Today, we will explore the classification of Incoterms and their application in global trade. As an international trader, understanding these terms is crucial to determining the responsibilities of buyers and sellers, ensuring smooth transactions worldwide. Incoterms 2020 is categorized into two major groups based on the mode of transport used. Incoterms for any mode of transport, multimodal terms, Incoterms for sea and inland waterway transport, maritime terms. Let's examine these categories one by one with clear examples. First, we have the Incoterms that apply to any mode of transport. These are especially useful when goods are shipped using multiple modes, such as road, rail, air, and sea, during a single transaction. These terms include EXW, ex-works, FCA, free carrier, CPT, carriage paid, to CIP, carriage and insurance paid to DRP, delivered at place, DPU, delivered at place, unloaded, DDP, delivered, duty, paid now. Let's take an example. Suppose a manufacturer in Germany sells machinery to a buyer in India under FCA, free carrier terms. The seller delivers the goods to a specified transport hub, let's say an airport in Frankfurt. From this point, the risk transfers to the buyer, who then arranges for the shipment to India, including customs clearance and inland transport. This makes FCA highly flexible for multimodal transport. Next, we have Incoterms that are specifically designed for sea and inland waterway transport. These terms are commonly used for bulk cargo, non-containerized shipments, and maritime trade. These include FAS, free alongside ship, FOB, free on board, CFR, cost and freight, CIF, cost, insurance and freight. Let's look at an example. A supplier in China sells steel rods to a buyer in the United States under FOB, Shanghai port terms. The seller is responsible for bringing the goods to the port and loading them onto the buyer's vessel. However, once the goods are on board, the responsibility shifts to the buyer, who must handle shipping, insurance, and final delivery. Before we conclude, let's summarize the key differences. Multimodal Incoterms can be used for any mode of transport, including air, road, rail, and sea. They are best suited for containerized shipments and international logistics. Maritime Incoterms, on the other hand, are exclusively for sea and inland water transport and are most commonly used for bulk and non-containerized cargo. For example, if you are shipping goods by air or rail, you must use FCA, CPT, or CIP, not FOB or CIF, which are only meant for sea transport. Welcome to this session on buyer versus seller obligations under Incoterms 2020. In any international trade transaction, the seller and buyer must clearly understand who is responsible for shipping, customs clearance, risk, and costs. Let's break this down. In international trade, the seller plays a crucial role in ensuring smooth logistics, compliance, and delivery. Under Incoterms 2020, the seller's responsibilities vary depending on the selected term. Let's go through these responsibilities one by one. The seller must provide the goods along with all necessary commercial documents, such as invoices, packing lists, and export documentation, ensuring that the goods meet contractual quality standards. The seller is responsible for packaging and labeling the goods according to international shipping regulations, ensuring that they are properly prepared for transportation. The seller must arrange transportation to the agreed point. This could be the buyer's premises, a transport hub, or a seaport, depending on the Incoterm used in the transaction. The seller must handle export customs clearance, which includes processing export duties, permits, and any required inspections before the goods leave the country of origin. In some cases, the seller is also responsible for freight and insurance costs. For example, under terms like CFR, cost and freight, or CIF, cost, insurance, and freight, the seller must arrange transportation to the buyer's port, while CIP, carriage and insurance paid to, requires the seller to provide insurance as well. In terms like FOB, free on board, the seller must also load the goods onto the buyer's nominated vessel, ensuring they are safely transferred at the port of departure. Risk transfer occurs at different points, depending on the Incoterm. For example, under EXW, Ex-Works, the risk transfers as soon as the goods leave the seller's factory, while under FOB, Free on Board, risk transfers once the goods are loaded onto the vessel at the port of shipment. Understanding these responsibilities helps businesses navigate international trade with clarity, efficiency, and reduced risk. Choosing the right Incoterm ensures a smooth transaction between buyer and seller. In an international trade transaction, the buyer has several key responsibilities that depend on the chosen Incoterm. Let's explore them in detail. The buyer must pay for the goods according to the contract terms, ensuring timely payment to avoid any delays in shipment. The buyer is responsible for import customs clearance and duties. This includes handling all customs procedures, paying import taxes, and securing necessary permits in the destination country. In cases where the Incoterm does not include freight or insurance, such as EXW, FCA, or FOB, the buyer must arrange for transport and insurance coverage to protect the shipment. Upon arrival at the destination, the buyer must manage unloading and final delivery of the goods to their warehouse or distribution center. The buyer assumes risk at the agreed point, depending on the Incoterm. For example, in EXW, the buyer takes full responsibility from the seller's factory, while in FOB, risk transfers once the goods are loaded onto the ship. In DDP, however, the seller bears all risks until the goods are delivered. Understanding these obligations helps buyers make informed decisions and manage costs effectively in global trade. Understanding these responsibilities helps businesses navigate international trade with clarity, efficiency, and reduced risk. Choosing the right Incoterm ensures a smooth transaction between buyer and seller. Incoterms. 2020 clearly defines the point at which risk transfers from the seller to the buyer, as well as who is responsible for various costs throughout the trade process. A clear understanding of these factors is essential for international trade, helping businesses minimize disputes and streamline logistics. While we will dive deeper into each Incoterm individually, let's first take a closer look at risk transfer points and cost breakdown to better understand their impact on global trade. In international trade, the transfer of risk from seller to buyer depends on the chosen Incoterm. Under EXW, Ex-Works, the buyer bears the maximum risk as responsibility shifts once the goods are made available at the seller's premises. With FCA, Free Carrier, risk transfers when the seller delivers the goods to the designated location, such as a transport hub. For FOB, Free on Board, the risk shifts once the goods are safely loaded onto the vessel at the port of shipment. In CIF, Cost, Insurance and Freight, and CFR, Cost and Freight, risk transfers at loading, though the seller covers the freight cost. Under DAP, Delivered at Place, and DPU, Delivered at Place. Unloaded, the risk remains with the seller until the goods reach the buyer's location, with DPU extending to the unloading process. Finally, DDP, Delivered Duty Paid, places the maximum responsibility on the seller, as risk transfers only when the goods are fully delivered, including customs duties. Each Incoterm plays a crucial role in defining risk and responsibility, ensuring smooth and predictable trade transactions. In international trade, each Incoterm determines which party is responsible for specific costs throughout the shipment process. Under EXW, Ex-Works, the buyer pays for everything after picking up the goods. With FOB, Free on Board, and FCA, Free Carrier, the seller covers export duties and loading charges while the buyer handles the rest. For CIF, Cost, Insurance and Freight, and CFR, Cost and Freight, the seller pays for freight, but risk still transfers at loading. In DAP, Delivered at Place, and DPU, Delivered at Place Unloaded, the seller covers all costs up to the delivery point, with DPU extending to unloading. Finally, DDP, Delivered Duty Paid, places the maximum responsibility on the seller, who pays for everything, including import duties and final delivery. Understanding these cost allocations helps businesses make informed decisions and manage expenses efficiently in global